Hey, so making a video on Project Cars 3. I don't think I let anyone know this, but I really like driving games. I've been into driving games since Gran Turismo 2 through 4. I really love Forza 4. That's like one of my favorite games. And during the lockdown, I kind of dipped my toe into the more simulator side of things. I bought a wheel, a T150, with a stand, and I got some of the big sims that I see a lot of sim racers playing. I got Project Cars 2, Assetto Corsa, and Assetto Corsa Competizione, and Automobilista. And also, I have Gran Turismo Sport on PS4, and I really tried to give hardcore sim racing an honest effort. And turns out I'm just not really a sim racer. I really like driving games with detailed physics engines and lots of cars, and I really like a game that properly simulates manual gearbox and braking. But there are certain aspects to sim racing that you have to do to actually gain a competitive edge that I just don't really find enjoyable. And I think the main aspects of that are just constant hot lapping, changing your tuning, watching constant replays, and then obviously committing yourself to hour-plus long races that are, very draining, and they're extremely... They require a lot of attention, and I definitely have a lot of respect for people who do sim racing and are able to commit to like a 6-hour race, because I definitely am not really cut out for that. And as much as I love games that have steep learning curves, whenever a game requires me to practice and then I find myself forcing myself to practice, I always end up asking the question, to what end am I doing this? And when it comes to sim racing, I mean, I have no aspirations of becoming an actual race car driver. I have no aspirations of joining the competitive gaming scene. In fact, I'm not really a competitive gamer in general, and I have no aspirations of starting any sort of YouTube channel where I, do live streams of races. So I don't usually find myself motivated to drag my wheel over to my computer, set it up, set my chair up so it, feels like a race chair, and then practice for hours on end like, some of these other sim racers do. And every time I enter a lobby, I'm going to be going up against people who are doing that and who have, full sim rigs. So, the actual full sim racing experience is just not for me. I definitely will occasionally drag my wheel over. I think especially when Le Mans comes around in September, to fire up some Assetto Corsa Competizione, because that game, or that sim, whatever you want to call it, is it's an amazing simulator. It has, the car physics just feel like nothing else I've ever played. It's really good at giving you information through your wheel as to what the road is doing, and you just feel every single bump in the road, and it's really easy to respond to what your car is doing because of that. So the Assetto Corsa games are just excellent. I really, really, really like them. But to be honest, recently I've just been plugging my controller in and playing Forza 7, which is what you see me playing right now. I play Forza 7 with all the assists off, manual gearbox, clutch, all of that, and I just kind of do that usually while I'm listening to a podcast. As you can see, I've been hot lapping here for like an hour and a half, but that's because the first half of it I was actually talking on the phone with my mother, and then I was listening to a podcast. This is what I like to do when I play racing games. I like games with a lot of detail and a lot of attention to the way cars actually handle, but I don't think I like actual simulators, because I do not really want to have the actual experience of being a race car driver, because it's a lot of work. It's not really a game, it's work. So anyway, back to Project Cars 3. I've been keeping my eye on this game because, as I've kind of laid out before, I am definitely the target demographic of this game. I'm someone who likes aspects of sim racing, but who's not an actual sim racer. And so it's kind of nice to see that there's a game coming out that actually appeals to that demographic, because I feel like recently the games that have been coming out have either been hardcore simulators or just like ridiculous arcade games that don't even feel like you're driving a car at all. And the Grid game that came out, I tried that one and I just didn't like it at all. It just did not feel like I was driving a car. Everything felt really floaty, and the post-processing effects were kind of loud and annoying. So with Project Cars 3, I like some of what I see. The fact that they've removed tire wear and fuel consumption is not something I really like, because while I don't necessarily, engage in races that require that type of stuff, in Gran Turismo Sport, you have the ability to set a multiplier, so you can do like a 10 or 12 lap race that has tire wear and fuel consumption. And I do enjoy that. I think that adds another aspect to the game. You have to come up with a pit strategy. And I like having that option in a game, even if it's not used very often. And I do hope that they model tire temperature, because tire temperature is something that even if you're doing a sprint race, like a 4 or 5 lap race, there's going to be a difference between the first lap and the second lap and the third lap. Your tires are going to warm up. It's going to affect the way you drive. And I think if a game doesn't model that, it's not even really... not only is it not a sim, but it's not even really a simcade game, because Gran Turismo and Forza, even though they don't have the most detailed tire temperature models, it's not even close to Assetto Corsa, there's still a tire temperature model. And so I really hope that the game at least has that. Like I said, I'm keeping my eye on this game. I say I'm cautiously optimistic about it. It's definitely not a day one buy for me, but then again, if you saw my last video, literally nothing is. I don't buy games day one. I watch gameplay footage before I do that. I was considering buying Grid day one, but I'm really glad I didn't, because when I played the demo, I was just not really impressed with it. That's about all. I hope Project Cars 3 turns out well, because I'm definitely the type of person who would enjoy what they're actually trying to make here, as Gran Turismo has pretty much abandoned, the aspect of having a single-player career and has just become kind of like an esports thing. I don't know if I'm going to get a PS5 yet, so Gran Turismo 7, maybe I'll get it. I'm not sure, but probably not for a while. So I think to have a game on PC at least that actually targets the simcade market would be cool, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. As you can see, I'm hot lapping a Dodge Viper around Road America in Forza 7, and Dodge Viper is definitely a car that was very, very big in the late 90s. It was like the it car. It was in tons of music videos and tons of video games, and it's kind of become a lot less shiny and new, but and some of the more recent games, both this one and Gran Turismo Sport, I found it to be one of my favorite cars. It's just a lot of fun. It's kind of like driving a slightly more forgiving muscle car, in that there's a lot of understeer and a lot of power, but the Dodge Viper is extremely forgiving. It allows you to push it a little bit too hard and correct your mistake back on track, and there's just something about going into a corner and pushing the car a little bit over and then correcting your mistake and then downshifting and just gunning it on the throttle and listening to that engine note. It just never gets old for me. I really, really love driving this car, both in Forza and in Gran Turismo Sport. It doesn't exist in Assetto Corsa without a mod, and I don't know what other sim games have this car in it, but I definitely want more games that allow me to drive cars like this, that aren't necessarily racing cars, but road cars with a lot of power that I would never be able to afford in my life, but at least try to do a decent job of simulating how the car actually works. So that's definitely what I want to see from Project Cars 3, is like a realistic physics engine with a lot of cool cars. That's the type of game I'm into.